talking with Dustin Riechmann from Engaged Marriage. Dustin, thank you again for participating in the Celebrate Life Summit, and we are very eager to share your thoughts and opinions.
Awesome. I'm super excited to do so.
What made you start your blog, Engaged Marriage?
Sure. Yeah, so Engaged Marriage started in the fall of 2009, and I remember that because it was one of the first vacations my wife and I had away from our children, our two children at the time. Now we have three. And so I'm a professional engineer by trade. I have a master's degree in engineering, and I've been doing that for, I guess, 9 or 10 years at the time. And we were on vacation in Cancun on the beach, enjoying some downtime. And I was reading a book by Dan Miller then called No More Mondays, and it's all about kind of finding your creative strengths and things like that. It was a different kind of book. I don't usually read that sort of thing, and I kind of had an epiphany moment, I guess, where I felt like, I had this message to share, and that book kind of led me into the online world that there might be some tools there to share it. And I say I had this other message because my wife and I had been teaching at marriage retreats and marriage preparation and things like that through our church for about 4 or 5 years at that time. It's something we enjoyed doing, just presenting and talking to young couples and helping them out with some of the struggles that we had been through earlier in our marriage. So to me, it was kind of the intersection of having this passion to help couples and feeling a little stagnant with all the left brain engineering stuff and wanting to have a way to do some creative writing and video and things like that, because I'd never been exposed to that. I didn't even know what a blog was at the time. So that was in August, and so by September I had Googled enough things and had enough late nights to figure out how to get the blog online and started writing articles, and it's been going ever since. So.
Great. The Celebrate Life Summit is about learning to celebrate a simpler life. Our society has been consumed with buying stuff, and most people are buried in debt because of it. In your opinion, what effect does debt have on a marriage?
It's one of the heaviest loads, I think, that we can put on a marriage. Because we've been on both sides of that coin. So to give a little perspective to your listeners, we were almost $55,000 in debt, not including our mortgage. And now, fortunately, we're debt free. We still have a mortgage. So I can honestly speak to both sides of that. And of course, I've interacted with probably thousands of couples between the blog and in person, and it's really a night and day thing. So some of the issues I think that debt brings, first of all, it can bring a lot of tension and stress between the couple, which is evidenced by the fact that, at least in the United States, money fights and disagreements about money is the #1 cause of divorce. So it's driving a lot of marriages apart. It becomes stressful. It can lead to dishonesty where people feel guilty, so then they hide things from their spouse when it comes to their finances. Whenever that gets realized, which it almost always does, it's almost like a financial infidelity feeling. You feel like you've been cheated on because it's something. A lot of people are more comfortable talking about sex and their sex lives than they are about money. It's a very intimate thing, and so there's it's easy to be sensitive and feel violated. And on the other side of that, I think on the positive side, whenever you get rid of debt, you realize just how much more freedom you have when you get away from kind of the worship of all the material things which our culture definitely leads us to. So there's that materialism, but also just the burden of debt, of having to make those monthly payments. Your income's just not freed up to do anything else. And it feels like as soon as you pay off one thing, the mentality is, well, now I have $300 a month that I can go buy the next thing and fill that back up. And so there's never any gap there. There's no emergency funds. There's no sense of security. So I guess in a nutshell, you give up security, freedom, and you add a lot of stress and weight to your marriage when you're carrying around all that debt.
Right. So you and Bethany, you said, owed $55,000 besides your mortgage. So when did you decide that you wanted to get a control of that situation?
Yeah, we went through, I guess, a multi-step process here. So right before we got married, I had a coworker who introduced me to Dave Ramsey and a book called Financial Peace. And it's a fairly old book now, 10 years old, probably maybe 12. But it's a great book. I recommend people check that out. And that book gave me the tools. It gave me all the technical knowledge I needed to understand why debt was bad and understand how to go about paying it off and that sort of thing. But we really didn't listen to it. So we were just getting married. We were doing the typical American dream thing. So we lived for a year in a rental, but then we bought our first house. We went another 3 or 4 years before we had our first child. And during that 3 or 4 years, we amassed, I guess, all of that debt. So we had 2 car payments, we had student loans, we had a few credit cards, we had furniture loans, and then we went and bought the new house. And it wasn't brand new, but new to us house. And so my son was born in 2005, our first child. So it was really at that time, right around the time that we found out she was pregnant, and then up through his birth, we got really serious about it. She got kind of the nesting, feeling concerned about our finances, and I felt all the pressure that, well, we really need to take this serious. We should have known better, but we didn't do it. So from 2005 is when we really got serious, and so from that point through February 2008 was our debt-free date. We remember it. Actually called into Dave Ramsey's radio show and got to yell, "I'm debt-free," and do that thing. So it was a 3.5-year period approximately that it took us to pay off the $55,000.
What kind of tools did you use to help your family get out of debt? What kind of systems did you put in place?
Yeah, so the big thing by far for everybody, I think, is the budget. And that can come in a lot of different forms. And we budgeted kind of sort of during those first 4 years. We just didn't pay that much attention to it. And we were constantly overspending our budget. And we're like, oh, well, we didn't stick to it. So even though we had it on paper, it wasn't very detailed, and we didn't keep track of it throughout the month. So it became kind of a retroactive thing. Like, yeah, we overspent on eating out again. We'll do better this month. We just never did. So we got really serious about a budget. At that time, I just created my own, like an Excel spreadsheet. And the big difference, though, wasn't just the tool and doing it. It was, at that point, we started monthly, and actually in the beginning, probably weekly, we would sit down together. And she's not a numbers person. I'm the nerd of the family through and through. So it was a lot more of me explaining, what all these payments are, what our obligations are, maybe where we could cut back, and we would agree on places we could cut back or where I could work more and things like that. So that we were always on the same page from 2005 forward. I would say we've been on the same page, very open communication, and really just paying attention to it. It probably makes the biggest difference of all. It's like we talk about with health and fitness and things. If you just write down everything you eat, even though you don't try to change what you eat, you just write it down, you'll lose weight because you're paying attention to it. And it's the same thing with money. Once you start documenting it, and so now what I use is a tool called You Need a Budget, and that makes it really easy because the technology's really changed in the last 10 years. So it's web-based, you can get on your iPhone, and you can really do things in real time and really keep track very, very well. So I'd say the budget was the big thing, and then at that time we did the envelope system, and so we basically used cash for most things, and we would have an envelope for, and I won't get them out, but I actually have all the envelopes that we had. They were just plain envelopes that we wrote different categories on. So for some of those we used cash. Where it wasn't convenient, we didn't use cash, but we would put our receipts in there, and then again every week I would tally up those receipts and write on the back of the envelope where we stood. And so again, it was just being focused and just paying attention to it, and then spending enough time and effort to look for places to cut back. And to be honest, you think, how do you pay off $55,000 in 3 years? And you must have cut your lifestyle to the bone, and it really didn't feel like that. We were just so bloated in all the junk that we were buying that, just to cut back to probably what our parents would have thought was excess, 30 years ago, felt fine. And that's really how we've lived since then, even though we're debt free. It's really set us up for a life of not feeling so materialistic. I'm not going to say we're not at all, but it really changed our mindset around always needing that next thing.
So you have a family of 5 Dustins. So do you have any tips for people with families on how you can save money and do that kind of thing, like make your budget smaller, really?
Yeah. On the expense side, it probably varies by family, but I know for us and for most of our peers, food is one of the biggest discretionary items that we could all stand to cut back on. It's not necessarily eating less food, but our big thing has been traditionally eating out. And it costs so much more, whether that's me going out to lunch, or us getting carry out in the evenings and that sort of thing. It adds up incredibly. So the number one thing I would suggest for people is meal planning. And again, it's not to deprive yourself or anything. It's simply on Sunday night we look at we plan out what we're going to have for dinner each night, And we use a tool called eMeals, and it's like $5 a month, and they give you all the recipes and a shopping list. So again, it makes it really easy. The technology is great. But even if we're not doing that, we may not like anything on the emails. That doesn't usually happen. But if it does, we still plan out Monday night, Tuesday night, and then we can look at, well, we have Boy Scouts Tuesday, so I'm going to be home late, so you guys will eat this, and I'll eat this. But it's planned out ahead of time. So we lose that last-minute temptation of, let's just go to McDonald's, which, it's not only bad for your pocketbook, of course, it's bad for your health. So meal planning's the big one. Another one we've saved a lot of money on is just kind of simple entertainment. And we can talk about some specific examples. But we just enjoy each other as a family. We're not as reliant, on always going and doing something and always leaving the house and always trying to spend a lot of money on entertainment. Those are more the day-to-day things, I think. And then the big picture, the two big ones are house and cars, because they're our two biggest expenses. So on the car front, in 2004 we had 2 new cars, and that was a lot of that $55,000 in debt. So we've committed to never having a car payment again. So it doesn't mean that we drive junk cars, but I don't think I'll ever buy another new car unless I just become independently wealthy. So the last car we bought, it was like had 20,000 miles on it. It felt very new. It was a great car, but it dropped 40% off the sticker price because it was a year old. So we do things like that with cars, and we try to always have a fund going forward to have something in there for the next car. And then house-wise, it's just that's probably the biggest temptation, is to try to keep up with the Joneses and our friends and just get a bigger house. And we have 3 kids now. We don't live in a very big house. It's not small. It's 4 times the size of anything I grew up in. So relatively speaking, it's pretty large, but by our current standards, it doesn't feel very big. And so I think a lot of people deal with that, where the moment they think that they can jump up in the house, they do. So what we've committed to is a 15-year mortgage. So that kind of keeps us in a smaller house, but it also means we're actually paying off a lot of the principal each month, rather than a big 30-year mortgage in a McMansion is what we call them, this gigantic house on a little lot in a subdivision, that most of the people that we hang out with are in. We love those houses, and some days it's like, wow, it would be great to have that bathroom. But it's also great to have the freedom to not be spending all the money on property taxes and mortgage payments. And one of the, in the not too distant future, our mortgage will be paid off, and we may upgrade in house at that time. But I guess we've become more patient with the big items, and I think a lot of that comes from the diligence of doing the small day-to-day things, like eating out, like not eating out as much and planning our meals. So those are the ones that come to mind.
Fantastic. What are some of the inexpensive, fun ways that you and your family spend time together? And also, if you have any inexpensive date night ideas that you and Bethany take part in?
Sure. Family entertainment-wise, we do, when the weather's, I'm in the Midwest, I'm down by St. Louis, Missouri, so our winters can be pretty iffy. It's usually pretty cold, but when the weather cooperates, we love to do things as a family outside. So that might mean just barbecuing and having friends over. It could just mean playing soccer, going for walks as a family with all the kids. In the winter, it might mean sledding or going for a run in the snow and chasing each other and doing snowball fights. So we do a lot of things like that in the evenings where we just all hang out, or my wife might cook dinner while I take all 3 kids and just do something to keep them occupied, push them on the swing, that sort of thing. So we keep that pretty simple as far as day-to-day entertainment. We watch TV, play video games together, have Nerf gun fights, wrestle. There's a lot of things that we can do that our kids think is the best thing ever. They're not really have the mindset that they need to go spend money to have fun, like so many of us are as adults. As far as, and actually there's a post on engaged marriage I would encourage people to check out. It's called something along the lines of 37 family things to do on a rainy Sunday. I happen to write it on a rainy Sunday. So if you search rainy Sunday on engagedmarriage.com, there's 37 ideas on there. And what's great about the post is probably 50 more ideas got shared in the comments. So if you're ever at a loss for a simple idea to do as a family, that's a great resource. And as far as date nights go, we do a lot of our date nights revolve around going out to eat because we don't do it as much as we used to. We'll just have a great, nice dinner together and drinks, and maybe go out for dessert and drinks, that sort of thing, and just have time to not have kids around, and we make it a point to not talk about the kids, all night, because it's so easy just to make that our whole conversation. And whenever you don't talk about the kids and you have some quiet time, it's amazing how entertaining it can be just to reconnect and talk to your spouse once in a while. So that's one of the things we do. As families on entertainment, we spend a lot of our weekend nights with friends. A lot of our friends have not exactly the same family, but very similar age kids. So it's really easy to go hang out at a friend's house, and then the kids can all play together while the adults are able to interact. So that's a way that we do that very often. And usually what we'll do there is one family will be responsible for appetizers and one for desserts, and then we'll order some food together. Or, we're responsible to bring the beer, and they're going to have dessert or something like that if that's what we're doing after. A lot of times we get together just after dinner. I think those are, we keep it pretty simple. And the other thing with date nights, too, is a lot of times we just don't go out, because our most expensive thing by far when we have a date night is the babysitting. So we have 3 small children, so it's not real easy to coax people to come over and watch them, because they're like, rabid little monkeys. So, and our parents aren't that close, so they'll watch them occasionally. But usually if we're going out, we got to pay someone. So instead what we'll do is make sure we get the kids to bed at a decent time, and we will pre-plan the night to where I'm not going to be on a computer, she's not going to be on a computer, we're watching, a certain movie, or we're going to, I don't know, play a game of cards, or this sounds like a common theme, maybe it is, have a glass of wine, but we'll have that time set aside where it's just us, and that's what we do. A lot of times it'll be food and drink related for whatever reason. That's what comes to mind in our recent past. So.
Thank you, Dustin. Is there any other things from Engaged Marriage? Any plans that you have coming up that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, I guess first of all, I'd encourage them just to come check it out. I think there's close to 400 articles on there. We talked a lot about finances today, and there's a lot of stuff on there about how to budget, a step-by-step plan for how to get started, and those sort of things. And then, we talk a lot about healthy sex and exercise and romance. There's a wide variety of topics, and parenting, communication. So I think there's a lot of great free resources there. I have a newsletter that I think people would really enjoy. So if you just go to engagemarriage.com, you'll see it right there on the sidebar that you can sign up. Aside from that, I wrote a book, I guess it's been almost a year now, called 15-Minute Marriage Makeover. It's a fairly quick read, and really the way it's set up is it's 28 different days. And it's just a 15-minute thing that you can do with your spouse on a given day to enhance your marriage. And one of the things that I preach a lot is most days trying to have 15 minutes to just be a couple. So after you get the kids to bed, before you go off and do all the other things you're going to do for the evening, we're all busy, and that's very understandable. We can all find 15 minutes, though, just to talk about our day, talk about, in the book we have different themes. So it's like finances is 1 week worth of things, and then sex, and then communication, and romance, I believe. So there's 15-minute exercises in there that all the feedback I got has been positive. And that's available, on Amazon and paperback, or if you like Kindle books, it's available as a Kindle, Nook, iBook, all those different formats. So that's something I think is the way I like it a lot, because it's by my nature, it's structured, and that it gives you very specific things to do. I think, especially as guys, a lot that helps us. It makes the guys feel comfortable, because they're like, okay, this is what I need to do, and it's not overboard. But at the same time, it's flexible in that if it's something you don't feel like you need work on and you just don't enjoy it, you just, no one's holding a gun to your head and said you have to do all 28. Just doing one a month as your date night would be, I think, a big benefit for many couples. So that's what I have to share.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dustin, for being willing to participate in the Celebrate Life Summit, and we sincerely appreciate your time here tonight with us.
Sure thing. I'm very glad that you guys are doing this. I'm excited to see the final product, and I'm very excited to be part of it. So thanks for inviting me.